Hi everyone, my name is Edric. I'm from the Meson Finance. I'm one of the co-founders responsible for product development as well as partnership. So today it will be very nice to have me in this meeting talking about our potential collaboration with the Conflux Hackathon, especially for those of you who are not really familiar with Meson Finance. I would like to have this chance to properly introduce our protocol, what we do, and how we are working with the Conflux blockchain, and most importantly, how we are helping you guys as the contestants of the hackathon winning this competition. So maybe I will do my part in three of the minor representations. So first of all, let me go through about the introduction about like Mason Finance, what we do, who we are, what we mean to the complex blockchain, and what we are offering to you guys as the participants of this complex hackathon. And then we can go through our API documentations and our development documentation explaining the different approach to integrate with Meson. And then finally, and most importantly, what we will be offering to the winner of this contestants at the Conflux Hackathon. So maybe let's get started. So first of all, for those of you who are not familiar with Meson Finance is building one of the largest cross-chain bridging protocols that enable seamless transfers of major digital assets like the Bitcoins, the Ethers, the stablecoins, primarily USDT and USDC, across different blockchains. Right now, we're operating on one of the largest blockchain coverage in this industry, covering about 60 plus 40 EVM, non-EVM compatible chains. And we have been consistently ranking as one of the top five um, independent cross-chain bridging uh, on the uh, on the blockchain dimensions, and has been operating in this industry on this track since the early 2022. So Conflux is one of our earliest adoption as a blockchain. Right now, we have supported the cross-chain bridging of USDT and USDC from Conflux blockchain to pretty much all of the major blockchain that you have already heard of. That includes the Ethereum as well as all the Ethereum compatible chains, Ethereum and its layer twos, Arbitrum, Optimism, Linea, Base, even the smaller chains. We have been already supported. And also we supported a lot of non-EVM compatible chains, like some of the most popular non-EVM, like the Tron, like the Solana, like the Aptos and Sui blockchain, we have already supported, which means if you are integrating with Meson Finance in your projects, you will not only be able to interact with the assets or with the users who are holding assets on Conflux blockchain, but also to all of the assets, all of the users who are holding similar assets on every other blockchains at large. So that will greatly expand your exposure to the users, exposure to the assets. And for this contestants, for this hackathon, what we're trying to do is we are trying to encourage the adoption of our SDK and APIs for Meson Finance, which means we would love to support anyone who are interested into integrating our APIs and SDKs into the projects that you are taking part in the Conflux Hackathon. Once you are able to manage to integrate our SDKs and APIs, we are glad to offer a bounty or a grant to anyone who are able to integrate with our API and SDKs and manage to submit at least one successful cross-chain transaction on chain. So that will be our offering to all the contestants. So here we are talking about how we can exactly integrate with the Meson API and SDKs. Let me briefly show you a way to do this. We have a full documentation available online for Meson APIs and SDKs. It is listed at meson.dev. You can take a look right away, or you can just record the URL and take a look at later time. In these documentations, we have the full detailed documentation about how to integrate with Meson via SDKs and APIs. For this bounty, for the eligibility to get a bounty or get a grant from Meson Finance, in this Conflux hackathon, we need the contestants to be able to integrate via the SDK or the APIs and manage to submit at least one successful cross-chain transactions on Meson Finance. As I explained right now, we are operating on one of the largest blockchain coverage on blockchain cross-chain protocol. That means we have already supported Conflux with its USDC and USDT tokens. By integrating with Meson APIs and SDKs, you are able to interact with all of the blockchain that we already supported and taking in their USDT, USDC, or any other equivalent stablecoins into Conflux, and then interact with those stablecoins or assets for the purpose of your D app. How to do this? First of all, we're able to support via the API integration. We have provided a full list of APIs available for your use. So you can check the API sections about all of the APIs we have already provided. And on the right part of the page, you can see there is a playground for API requests where you can interactively working with our APIs and get a real-time response from all of the APIs. That would be a great way to interact with the APIs and to just troubleshoot with any potential problems. And also, in the response section, you can see the full structure of the potential response from any API calls. And also, it gets the APIs for different ways of initiating swaps, querying swaps, and checking the swap status. So the typical flow for integrating with Meson Finance via API would be, first of all, you need to get the price for a swap. These APIs will return the fees and the corresponding output for any specified route. On our case, the two destination parameters would be very likely to be the Conflux USDT or Conflux USDC. And you can just put in the corresponding query into the API calls and get the corresponding fees and amount for the transaction. Then the second step and the most important step will be encoding a cross-chain swap. This is the steps where you have to put in all the necessary parameters and build that complete transaction to be seized by the protocol to process. Once it gets processed, it will return to the corresponding parameters where you can consequently submit all the API's requests to the next step. Then you need to submit what you have get from the previous encode APIs to our API calls. This is the time where the user fund will be deducted from the original wallet and it will be enrolled to the desired destination, which you have been putting at the encode step. So that's it. This is how you initiating a cross-chain swaps on Meson Finance. Once the encoded swap is submitted to the APIs, you will get a swap ID just like this. And using that swap ID, you can use the check swap status APIs to check the status of that swap. Most of our swap completes in about 1 to 2 minutes. Well, depending on the congestion of the origin and the destination chains, it could take up to 5 minutes, but most likely it will be completed in about 1 to 2 minutes. So you can treat that as pretty much real time when taking in the funds. So all of the details corresponding API documentations has been listed here, and you can take a look. If you have any questions, you can always join our Discord channel to discuss with our dev. And also, if you have any questions, submit the ticket to our customer service representative so they can take a look as well. And as I mentioned, for any contestants in the Conflux Hackathon who are able to integrate our API or SDKs and manage to submit at least one transaction on Meson Finance will be eligible to our bounty or grant. And this is how we are supporting the Conflux ecosystem as well as this hackathon to move forward and attracting more potential participants. So if you have any questions, feel free to let us know and we'll try our best to answer. Thank you.
That was great, Edric. Thank you very much. I get a question myself. Does the API support testnet as well, or is it only mainnet at the moment?
It supports both. So if you change the endpoints of the APIs to this testnet environment, it will be supported on testnets. If you change it onto the mainnet endpoints, it will be supported by mainnets.
All right, that's great. And regarding the SDK, maybe you want to comment a little bit more about it. Like, what's the differences between using the SDK and the API? I mean, it's basically for the same purpose, I guess, but just interacts directly with the smart contract without passing through your API.
So the major difference is like for the SDKs, it's the front end SDKs written in React.js. So if you don't want to write your own front end, for example, cross-chain front end, and the SDKs would be the easier way to do. You can just inject our SDKs into your front end and calling the corresponding components. And that way we will be able to frame the front end UI for you, and you can just easy to use for a project. But if you already have your front end written and you like to keep that consistently across the user flow, you might want to take a look at the API integration, where the API integration always happens at the backstage. And in that way, you will have that consistent UI throughout your user flow, and have a better control of the front end as well. So it's really up to you, depending how you want a UI to be built, and how you like to trade off between the work you're doing or the consistency of your UIs.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Edric. I got a question, another question myself, regarding like maybe what use cases or what integration ideas do you have, like for like the participants in the hackathon? Like, what stuff would you like getting built using Meson API?
Yes. So if you're building, for example, a Dexys on Conflux, what we can do here is like normal DEXs on Conflux will only take in one specified tokens on Conflux and trade it for another. But like that will limit your project to be limited to the Conflux ecosystem, which means user have to move or have to have their assets on Conflux first to be able to trade or to be able to interact with your projects. By integrating with Meson Finance, the project will be able to directly integrate in with all the stable coins across major blockchains, not only of Conflux, but also Ethereum, but also Arbitrum, but also Optimism. So that will greatly increase the exposure of a project to the user as well as the assets. So that's one use case. That's actually how one of our biggest partner, OKX Web3, is using. They are connecting us with their different DEXs on different blockchains, so that we create that cross-chain trade capabilities that leads to the better pricing and better routing for the user.
That's right. Yeah. Um, I think that's a good idea. I also was thinking that, for example, apart from like actual web apps, good, for example, projects that are more like backend based, like for example, developer tooling or maybe agentic infrastructure, like for example, let's say an NCP server that can interact with Meson. Could that apply for the bounty as well?
Yes, yes, yes. So we are always open to work with different kind of projects. As I have been talking about this several times with different partners and different developers, Meson Finance is a cross-chain protocol. So user won't use a cross-chain protocol for the sake of cross-chain. There must be a purpose for them. For example, they want to get into the Conflux ecosystem. They want to trade on Conflux. They want to, for example, they want to trade for the CFX token. That's the purpose. And once they feel that purpose, want to get into the Conflux blockchain, they might look for the help from, for example, central exchanges or cross-chain protocol to bring their existing assets on another blockchain to Conflux. That's where we kick in. So for Mason Finance, we are building that channels to make sure when user is finding a purpose on a specific blockchains, we are providing that channel to the user so that they can move their assets, interact with their purposes. And it's the same for the developers as well. So when we are building this protocol for the developers, we are making sure that all of the developers will eventually get in touch with the assets or with the user on whichever chain they are building, and attracts them to the blockchain that our developer is currently building on, which is Conflux. So it will be the same thing. I mean, we are looking for the purpose, and the purpose is the user, is the developer, and that's why we're doing this.
That's awesome, Edric. Thank you very much. But overall, thank you very much, Edric. It was great to learn about the Meson API and SDK. I guess we will be expecting some projects integrating it. And
Likewise.
yeah, very much. Thank you very much also for sponsoring the hackathon and supporting us, supporting the Conflux developer community.
Thank you again for having me today, and I really appreciate your help.
And thanks everyone in the audience for joining today. And let's keep building.